Jennifer, peace has been at the core of what Rotary does from the start. So how has peace building changed within Rotary over the years? And how does the partnership with the Institute for Economics and Peace strengthen our work?
I think peace building has changed over the years, primarily because we have more tools, we have more awareness. If you think about social media, let's just say, for example, the ability for us to connect in such profound ways so quickly across, something can happen in one part of the world and within seconds, we all know what's going on. If you think back to, a few decades ago, let's say 50 years ago, we relied on newspapers that took time and space and everything for us to be able to understand complex issues. So that's both good and bad because we get a lot of it coming at us, and we see how, let's just again use social media as an example. It works for good and it also works for evil. We see the benefit of immediacy, but we also know that people take advantage of. We've seen how it's affected elections. We've seen how it's affected, to the other complete end of the spectrum, bullying, different things like this, mental health issues that come out of it. So as a globe, as a world, and even as Rotary, we've become much better because I think of the tools that we have at our disposal. But we always have to be careful with these. We always have to make sure that we're looking for the right way to do things and acting with responsibility and taking personal responsibility for our actions is a really big part. We've seen such a divisive time in our globe, and not necessarily COVID related, but I'll talk about, in North America, it is an incredibly divisive time right now. And a large part of that is due to something like social media. But at the same time, we also see the wonderful benefits of it. So it's very much a measurement of how we take the things that are at our disposal and do the best with them that we can.
Well, what I'd like to mention really is that we start to think about peace and conflict. The study of it really is fairly new. The first Peace and Conflict Centre was actually set up at Bradford University in the mid-60s. And if we think about it, that's only 60 years ago. And I think when I started to get involved, maybe about 17 years ago in peace, what I profoundly realised that when we studied peace, a lot of the time we're studying conflict. So what we're doing is we're trying to stop conflict. But the study of peace isn't actually the study of stopping conflict. They're actually different concepts. And I guess there's a bit of an analogy there, if you like. So if you think of health, like great breakthroughs in health, in terms of the study of pathology, none of us are going to die of a heart attack young, curing cancer. So really important and great. But it wasn't until we studied healthy people we knew how to stay healthy. Right exercise, correct mental disposition, good diet. You're not going to learn any of those things through studying someone on their deathbed. So peace is something like that. You've got to study the healthy societies. And that's where positive peace comes in, because it's really purely empirically driven, mainly through mathematical modelling and statistics. And so it gives us the insight in what we've got to do to create peace. But it also gives us a profoundly different way of being able to view things. And so I'll give you a practical example. Okay, this comes from a gentleman called Jude Mbumbi from the Sissi Islands, the club in Uganda. So we did train along with Rotary, 180 people on positive peace, and did a couple of different sessions. And Jude was one of the people trained. And the club was running a project which was to deal with literacy, and been at it for 2 years. And literacy, and it was incredibly in poor rural area in Uganda, and hadn't really sort of changed the outcome, the scholastic outcome. And then so he took the positive peace framework and viewed the project through the 8 pillars and came up with a number of things which they wouldn't have thought of doing. And sort of three of them I'll hit and try and do it very quickly. So the first was to deal with the acceptance of the rights of others. And they noticed that a lot of the girls weren't going to school 4 days a month. And that was simply because they were menstruating, and so they stayed at home. So they then provide sanitary pads and some separate toilets for them. Now, that improved attendance rates and improved their scholastic rates because they were more focused. Another one, which you've never realised unless you're looking at it through a different lens, was good relationships with neighbours. For a school, you'd take it for granted. And what happened was the kids at lunchtime were going out and raiding the fruit trees in the farms around them to get food because they're simply hungry. And this was causing great problems with a lot of the neighbours because every apple, every pear, they're meaningful in those really poor environments. So they planted fruit trees and then put a porridge filling program in at lunchtime, which only cost a few cents a person, so pretty cheap. And the final one was free flow of information. And what they did there is they went out and talked about the program on the local radio station. So they talked about what they were doing and how it was operating. So now, what's the outcome of all that? The attendance rates at the school went up 250%. They had to build new classrooms, overcrowded. Scholastic rates went from 30% of the students being in the top two divisions within the local district to 60% of the kids. And the reason for this coming about was the improvement in the attention rates, because when the kids were getting some food at lunchtime, the brains had the activity to concentrate through the afternoon, where before it was falling off. Why did the attendance rates go up? When they put it out over the radio that there were free food at lunchtime, a lot of parents now started to send their kids to school because it was one less meal they had to provide for. Therefore, the positive piece, in the lens of it, it's a practical example of how positive piece and the projects of Rotary come together and fit neatly.